Commander Jack Porter stood at the observation window, his weathered face reflecting off the transparent aluminum as he gazed at the massive derelict floating in space before him. The Valiant, an ancient human warship, drifted silently against the backdrop of stars, its hull scarred with the evidence of battles fought centuries ago. Remarkable that it's still intact after all this time, he murmured, mostly to himself. The Alliance survey vessel had detected the anomaly 3 days ago, while mapping the outer reaches of the Cygnus arm. Initial scans identified it as human in origin, but it wasn't until they'd moved closer that Jack recognized what they'd found. "Sir, the Krikstar delegation is requesting permission to board," said Lieutenant Lisa Warren, appearing at his side. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation knot, her uniform pristine despite the excitement buzzing through the crew. Jack nodded without looking away from the ancient warship. "Tell them they can wait. This is human heritage." "They're quite insistent, sir. Ambassador Grutak claims they have rights to inspect all discoveries in this sector." "Of course they do," Jack sighed. The Krikstar had become the dominant species in the Alliance over the past 50 years, their technological advancement outpacing humans since the Great War. They never missed an opportunity to remind humanity of their subordinate position. The Valiant was the last of Earth's military vessels from before the Alliance era, a relic from a time when humans had been a formidable presence in the galaxy. Jack had seen pictures in historical archives, but never expected to encounter one intact. When the shuttle docked with the derelict vessel, Jack was the first through the airlock. The emergency lights on his suit cast eerie shadows down the darkened corridors. Dust floated in the zero gravity, undisturbed for perhaps hundreds of years until their arrival. "Artificial gravity is offline," Lisa reported, checking her scanner. "Life support systems dormant, but wait, that's odd." "What is it?" Jack asked, pushing himself carefully along a handrail. "I'm detecting minimal power readings. After all this time, something's still running." Their lights swept across the command bridge, revealing seats designed for human bodies, control panels with physical switches and buttons instead of mural interfaces. It was like stepping into a museum. Ambassador Grutak's harsh laugh echoed through their comm system as the Krikstar delegation entered behind them. His scaled skin glistened under the emergency lights, four-fingered hands gesturing dismissively at the surroundings. This is what humans once considered the pinnacle of their military might. The translator rendered his clicking speech into standard. "How primitive. Look at these manual controls. No wonder your species required assimilation into the Alliance for protection." Jack clenched his jaw but said nothing. The Krikstar delegation moved through the bridge, their tall frames awkward in the human-designed space. "The Alliance High Council will want this scrapped for resources," Grutak continued. "Valuable metals could be reclaimed." Lisa stepped forward. "With respect, Ambassador, this vessel represents significant historical value. It's the last known surviving warship from Earth's pre-Alliance fleet. Sentimental attachment to obsolete technology," Grutak dismissed. "Typical human weakness." While they argued, Jack moved to what appeared to be the captain's station. His hand brushed against the control panel, wiping away decades of dust. Beneath it, a small light blinked, faint but unmistakable. "Lisa," he called quietly. "Come look at this." She joined him, eyes widening at the sight. "That's impossible. Power reserves shouldn't last this long." "Unless it wasn't completely powered down," Jack suggested. "Or it's drawing energy from somewhere." A younger Krikstar scientist approached, his scanning device extended. "Our readings show no significant technology worth preserving. These weapon systems would be useless against modern defenses." Jack exchanged a glance with Lisa. Neither spoke the thought that passed between them. Why, then, was something still active after all these years? As the delegation continued their inspection, laughing at what they considered primitive design, Jack noticed more subtle signs of life in the old warship. The air felt different here, charged with potential. And deep within the bulkheads, he could swear he heard the faint hum of machinery waiting to awaken. 3 days after the discovery, The Alliance High Council granted Jack's request to form a small research team to study the Valiant before any decisions about its fate were made. Jack stood in what had once been the ship's main engineering section, watching as Ben Collins, the team's engineer, carefully examined the ancient propulsion systems. These engines weren't just shut down, Ben said, his voice filled with wonder. They were deliberately preserved. Look at these maintenance seals. They are designed to last centuries. Jack nodded, running his hand along a panel of controls that seemed impossibly well preserved. The historical records said these ships were decommissioned after the peace treaties. Most were dismantled. Well, somebody wanted this one kept intact, Ben replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. They had restored minimal life support to the vessel, but the air remained stale and cool. Lisa Warren entered the engineering bay, tablet in hand. I've been cross-referencing the ship's markings with our historical archives. The Valiant wasn't just any warship. It was the flagship of Earth's final defensive fleet. Jack raised an eyebrow. That's not in any of the official records. Exactly. Lisa's eyes shone with excitement. I found classified files that were sealed even from Alliance access. According to what I can piece together, this ship fought in the last battle before the Alliance formation. From the doorway came a dismissive clicking sound. Skittle, the Krigstar representative assigned to monitor their work, leaned against the frame, his scaled skin reflecting the emergency lighting. Humans and their fascination with obsolete technology, he said. The High Council grows impatient. You have 5 more days before they vote on recycling this museum piece. After Skittle departed, Maya Rodriguez, the team's AI specialist, emerged from a small alcove where she'd been working. That guy gives me the creeps, she whispered. Always watching, always reporting back. The Krigstar just want to make sure we're not wasting resources, Jack replied, though he didn't entirely believe it himself. Maya shook her head. It's more than that. I caught him trying to access the ship's computer core earlier. He seemed very interested in certain encrypted sections. Did he succeed? Jack asked sharply. Not even close. Maya smiled. That's the fascinating thing. These encryption protocols are beyond anything we use today. I can't crack them, and neither can Alliance tech. It's like this ship was designed to keep secrets from future technologies. Ben called them over to a sealed doorway he'd been working on. I think I found something important. This section isn't on any of the ship schematics, but I've managed to reroute power to the door mechanism. With a groan of long dormant machinery, the heavy door slid open. Their lights revealed a room filled with equipment none of them recognized. What is all this? Lisa whispered. I think it's a manual override system, Ben replied, examining the strange mechanical interfaces. Look, these controls are completely isolated from the main computer network. You could operate critical ship functions even if all electronic systems were compromised. Jack frowned. Why would they need that? What enemy were they fighting that could take over ship systems? Lisa pulled up her historical notes. The records are deliberately vague, but there are references to an enemy that could turn our own technology against us. That's why Earth's final fleet had these analog backups. As they explored further, Maya discovered a sealed chamber containing what appeared to be the ship's AI core. Unlike modern systems, it was massive, taking up an entire room. It's dormant but intact, she announced after running preliminary scans. And look at this. It has its own isolated power source that's still functioning after all this time. Can you wake it up? Jack asked. Maya hesitated. Maybe, but I'm not sure we should rush this. Whatever's stored in there was important enough for someone to ensure it would survive for centuries. Outside the ship, unseen by the team, Skeetle was sending an encrypted message to his superiors. Humans discovering more than anticipated. Recommend accelerating timeline for disposal of artifact. Jack sat in the makeshift meeting room they had set up on the Valiant, staring at the emergency transmission playing on the screen. The message from Outpost Sigma repeated on a loop, The face of the station commander filled with barely controlled panic. Alliance Command, we are under attack by unknown vessels. Our systems are failing. Weapons offline. Communications, they're getting into the transmission cut to static. That's the third outpost to go silent this month, Lisa said, her voice hushed. She placed a cup of coffee in front of Jack. No survivors reported from the previous two. Ben looked up from the console where he'd been working, and like the others, their defense systems just shut down, as if someone flipped a switch. Maya entered the room, her usual energy subdued. I've been analyzing the sensor data from the outposts before they went dark. There's a pattern to these attacks. Whatever these ships are, they emit an energy signature I've never seen before. The High Council is calling it random raider activity, Jack said, rubbing his tired eyes. They've deployed 3 Alliance cruisers to the sector. Those cruisers are running the same integrated systems as the outposts, Ben pointed out. If the attackers can shut down an outpost's defenses, no one finished the thought. They didn't need to. Lisa pulled up an old file on her tablet. I found something in the Valiant's historical archives. References to entities called the Harvesters. They appeared every few centuries, attacked human colonies, then disappeared. The last recorded encounter was just before the Alliance formation. That's over 200 years ago, Maya said. Yes, and according to these logs, they were expected to return. Lisa's voice grew quieter. The captain's final entry suggests the Valiant was preserved specifically as a countermeasure against their return. Jack stood up, pacing the small room. We need to present this to the Alliance High Council. If there's a connection. They won't listen, Ben interrupted. I was at the engineering committee meeting yesterday. The Krixthar representatives were pushing hard to have the Valiant dismantled immediately. Called it an embarrassing reminder of human warfare tendencies. As if summoned by the mention, Skittle appeared in the doorway. Commander Porter, I have orders from the Council. Your research period is being cut short. The Valiant will be moved to the recycling facility in 2 days. On what grounds? Jack demanded. Resources are needed for the new defense initiative against these raiders, Skittle replied smoothly. The Council voted this morning. After the Krixthar left, the team sat in stunned silence. 2 days, Maya whispered. That's not enough time to even scratch the surface of the ship's systems. Jack's communicator chimed with a priority message. His face darkened as he read it. The Alliance cruisers sent to investigate Outpost Sigma. They've gone silent too. Lisa pulled up a star chart. If these attacks follow the same pattern as the historical records, her finger traced a path through Alliance space. They're heading toward the Central Worlds. We need to accelerate our work, Jack decided. Maya, focus on getting that AI core operational. Ben, get those manual systems online. Lisa, find everything you can about these harvesters and how the Valiant was designed to fight them. What are you going to do? Ben asked. Jack's expression hardened. I'm going to call in every favor I have. If the Council won't listen to reason, maybe some of my old military contacts will. As the team dispersed to their tasks, Jack stared out a viewport at the Alliance survey vessel docked alongside them. In the distance, he could see a Krixthar military ship that hadn't been there that morning. They're watching us more closely now, he murmured to himself, which means we must be onto something important. In the depths of the ship, as if responding to the mounting tension, more systems began to show faint signs of life, lights blinking in darkness that had lasted centuries. Jack adjusted his dress uniform as he stood on the observation deck of Alliance Central Station. Below, through the massive transparent viewing floor, the Valiant floated in a specially constructed display dock. Spotlights highlighted the ancient warship's battle scars and faded insignia while Alliance dignitaries and foreign ambassadors circled it on viewing platforms. Quite the spectacle they've made of her, Lisa commented, joining him at the railing. Jack nodded grimly. A last-minute reprieve from the recyclers, but not how I hoped to save her. The Alliance High Council had decided that instead of immediately scrapping the Valiant, they would showcase it during the diplomatic summit as a historical curiosity and testament to how far galactic civilization had advanced. In reality, it was little more than a museum piece being used for political theater. Across the chamber, Admiral Vrizek, the highest-ranking Krixthar military officer, addressed a group of officials. His voice carried through the space. This primitive vessel represents the barbaric approach to conflict resolution that dominated human history, he said, gesturing dismissively. Note the crude ballistic weapon ports and minimal energy shielding. Such a vessel would not survive 10 seconds against modern defense systems. Laughter rippled through the gathered dignitaries. Jack's knuckles whitened as he gripped the railing. "They don't know what they're looking at," Ben whispered, approaching from behind. "I've managed to keep working while they've been setting up this circus. The Valiant has systems I'd never seen before, technologies that don't match anything in our historical records." Maya slipped into their circle, her eyes bright with excitement despite the somber mood. "I've made progress with the AI core," she whispered. "It's not completely dormant as we thought. It's in a deep hibernation mode, but it's monitoring everything. I think it's been assessing us since we first came aboard." "Can you wake it?" Jack asked. "Partially. I've established minimal communication protocols, but it's selective about what it responds to, almost like it's waiting for something specific." Their conversation was interrupted as Jack's secure communicator vibrated with an urgent alert. He checked it, and his expression darkened. "Defense Station Epsilon has gone dark," he said quietly. "That's the third one this week." Lisa glanced nervously at the oblivious dignitaries. How close? Too close. If they maintain their current trajectory, they'll reach populated systems within days. Below them, the Valiant sat silently in its display cradle, spotlights making it seem smaller and more obsolete than it was. Yet as Jack watched, he noticed something odd, a faint pulsing light in one of the bridge windows that hadn't been there before. "Maya," he said slowly, "did you leave any equipment running on the bridge?" She shook her head. "Everything's shut down for the exhibition." Jack's communicator buzzed again, this time with a message from the science team monitoring the Valiant. The text was brief but chilling. "Unexplained energy surge detected from artifact. Origin unknown." Without warning, every light in the observation deck flickered. The dignitaries looked up in confusion as the station's communication system emitted a burst of static followed by a sequence of tones. Maya's eyes widened. "That's not random interference. That's a pattern." On the viewing platforms, the gathered officials continued their conversations, unaware of the significance. Only Admiral Vrizek seemed to notice something amiss, his narrow eyes fixing on their small group with suspicion. "We need to get back to the ship," Jack said urgently. "Now." As they made their way through the crowd, Lisa's tablet chimed with an alert. "Jack," she whispered, showing him the screen. "The pattern. It matches a warning code from the oldest human military archives. It's a proximity alert for an incoming hostile force." Behind them, unnoticed by the laughing dignitaries, more lights began to flicker across the Valiant's hull. Deep within its dormant systems, something ancient was stirring, recognizing a threat it had been built to combat centuries ago. The emergency lights bathed the Valiant's bridge in a soft red glow as Jack and his team worked frantically at various stations. After the warning signal at the diplomatic gathering, they had been granted emergency access to continue their research, though officially it was merely to investigate the system malfunction. Something activated the ship's alert protocols. Maya said, her fingers flying across the ancient interface she'd adapted to communicate with the Valiant's systems. "The AI core is waking up on its own. I'm not doing this. It's responding to external stimuli." Ben called from the engineering section through their comlink. "You need to see this. The ship is initiating self-repair protocols. Damaged systems are being rerouted and restored." Jack and Lisa had exchanged glances before rushing to join Ben. When they arrived, They found him standing before a wall that had seemingly opened itself, revealing a hidden compartment filled with technology neither of them recognized. "These aren't in any schematics," Ben said, his voice filled with wonder. "It looks like some kind of advanced weapon system, but the design principles are completely different from anything in our database." Lisa examined the strange devices. "These aren't energy weapons like we use today. They're electromagnetic pulse generators, massive ones." "Why would they need those?" Jack asked. "Against an enemy whose strength is technological infiltration," Lisa suggested. "The historical records mention the harvesters could overtake any digital system they encountered." Maya's voice came through their comms. "I've got partial access to the AI core. It's showing me something. Schematics, battle plans. Jack, this ship wasn't just a warship. It was designed specifically to combat the harvesters. That's why it was preserved." As they rushed back to the bridge, they found Maya staring at displays showing complex defensive systems. "The Valiant has completely analog backup systems for every critical function," she explained, pointing to various diagrams. "And look at this. Its hull contains a special electromagnetic shielding mesh that blocks external signal penetration. That's why it appears so primitive on scans. Half its technologies are undetectable by our standard methods." The ship shuddered slightly as more systems came online. Dormant power cells began charging, drawing energy from sources they couldn't identify. "The ship is waking up," Ben whispered. "It knows they're coming." The main door to the bridge slid open unexpectedly, revealing a delegation of Krikstar scientists led by Skittle. "What is happening here?" Skittle demanded. "Our sensors detected unauthorized power activations." Before Jack could respond, Admiral Vrizik pushed his way forward, flanked by security officers. "This vessel was to remain inactive during its exhibition. Your team has clearly violated protocol." "We're investigating the alert signal," Jack said firmly. The ship activated itself. The Krikstar Admiral scoffed. "Impossible. Your primitive technology can't." He was interrupted as every screen on the bridge suddenly illuminated, displaying a single image, a star map with a moving formation of ships approaching Alliance space. The display showed 3 Alliance defense stations marked with warning symbols. "What is this?" Vrizik demanded. Maya looked up from her console. "The Valiant is tracking them. It recognizes the harvester energy signatures." One of the Krikstar scientists moved forward, his interest overcoming his disdain. "We must examine this technology immediately. How is it detecting ships our sensors cannot track?" "The Valiant was built to fight them," Lisa explained. "Its systems were specifically designed to counter harvester technology." Jack noticed how the Krikstar delegation's attitude had shifted from mockery to intense interest. Admiral Vrizek's eyes narrowed as he studied the displays. "You will turn over all research on these detection systems to Krikstar Command immediately," Vrizek ordered. Before Jack could respond, the ship's lighting changed, and a new display appeared on the main screen, a message in ancient human military code that Lisa quickly translated. "Harvester Vanguard detected. Estimated time to Central Worlds, 36 hours. Combat protocols initialized." Beneath their feet, they felt a deep vibration as dormant engines began the warming sequence that would bring them fully online for the first time in centuries. The emergency meeting of the Alliance High Council had lasted less than 20 minutes. Reports of 3 more defense stations going silent had ended all debate. The Harvester fleet was now less than 12 hours from the most populated systems, and conventional defenses were proving useless. "The Council has authorized emergency activation of the Valiant," announced the Alliance Chancellor, her hologram flickering slightly in the ship's briefing room. "Commander Porter, you and your team are granted temporary military authority to operate the vessel." Jack nodded grimly. "We'll do our best, Chancellor, but none of us are trained to operate a warship of this era." "You have more experience with it than anyone else," she replied. "Alliance military personnel will be at your disposal, but given the unique nature of the vessel..." She didn't need to finish. Modern Alliance crews were trained on neural interfaces and AI-assisted systems. The Valiant's manual controls and analog backups would be foreign to them. After the transmission ended, Jack turned to his team. Maya, what's our status with the AI core? Partially online and becoming more responsive by the hour, she reported. It seems to be evaluating us, testing whether we're worthy of full access. Ben, the engineer, looked up from his tablet. Main engines are at 60% capacity. Weapon systems are online, but targeting requires manual calibration. The electromagnetic shielding is fully functional. That's the good news. Lisa, she gestured to the tactical display. I've been studying the historical battle records from the Valiant's database. The harvesters use some kind of signal that corrupts digital systems. That's why our modern ships are defenseless. They're too dependent on integrated computers. Jack nodded, making his decision. We'll crew her ourselves. Maya on communications and AI interface. Ben in engineering. Lisa, you've studied the tactical systems most. You'll handle weapons. And you? Ben asked. Someone has to take the helm, Jack replied with a grim smile. Admiral Vrzek entered without announcing himself, flanked by Kriksthar officers. His usual arrogance was subdued. The Kriksthar battle group has suffered total systems failure upon engaging the enemy, he reported stiffly. 5 cruisers lost with all hands. We request coordination with your efforts. Jack nodded. We'll transmit shield frequencies that may help protect your remaining vessels. The Admiral seemed about to object to taking orders from humans, but thought better of it. The Alliance fleet is gathering at Proxima Station for a last stand. After the Kriksthar departed, the team took their stations. Jack settled into the captain's chair, feeling its worn contours beneath him. He placed his hands on the manual control interfaces, surprised at how natural they felt. Docking clamps released. Ben reported from engineering. Power levels rising to 80%. Weapons charging. Lisa called from tactical. Electromagnetic pulse generators online. Maya's fingers danced across her adapted interface. The AI is becoming more responsive. It's showing me battle formations. I think it remembers how to fight them. Jack took a deep breath. All stations, prepare for departure. Outside on the observation deck, Alliance officials and civilians gathered to watch. Many had come to mock the primitive vessel one last time before evacuation transports departed. Instead, they watched in stunned silence as lights blazed to life across the Valiant's hull. The ancient engines ignited with a blue-white flame that seemed impossibly powerful for a ship of its age. The Valiant rose smoothly from its display cradle, maneuvering with a grace that belied its centuries of dormancy. Admiral Vrzek stood at the viewport, watching as the human Relic moved toward the staging area, where the remnants of the Alliance fleet waited. His aide approached cautiously. Admiral, should we board our command ship? Vrzek continued staring at the Valiant. No. Request permission to join the human vessel. Sir, the aide couldn't hide his shock. Their ship is the only one that's engaged the enemy and maintained functionality. Vrzek said quietly. Pride has no place when survival is at stake. As the Valiant accelerated away from the station, its engines roared with increasing power, a sound not heard in Alliance space for centuries. It was the sound of human warfare, long forgotten but now desperately needed. The Valiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Arcturus system, directly in the path of the advancing Harvester fleet. On the bridge, Jack and his makeshift crew worked with focused intensity, each movement deliberate as they prepared for battle. Harvester vessels detected. Lisa called from the tactical station. 5 large ships, dozens of smaller craft. Their energy signature matches the historical records exactly. Maya's hands moved across her console. They're broadcasting the same signal that disabled the Alliance fleet. Our electromagnetic shielding is holding. No system penetration detected. Admiral Vrzek stood at the rear of the bridge, watching with undisguised fascination. When he'd requested to join them, Jack had been skeptical, But the Krikstar's knowledge of current Alliance fleet movements had proven valuable. The remaining Alliance vessels are falling back to secondary positions, Vrzek reported, studying the tactical display. They cannot approach without losing all systems. Jack nodded, hands firm on the manual flight controls. Then we'll have to bring the fight to them. Ben, are the pulse generators at full capacity? Ready on your mark, Ben confirmed from engineering. And sir, I've found something else. The ship has short-range teleportation technology we didn't know about. The system's designed to deploy boarding teams. Jack exchanged glances with Lisa. The historical records had mentioned the final phase of Harvester battles. After their ships were disabled, humans had boarded to finish the job. The Valiant remembers, Lisa said softly. The lead Harvester vessel detected them and altered course, moving to intercept. Unlike the sleek designs of modern ships, the Harvester craft appeared almost organic, writhing metal structures surrounding a pulsating core. They're scanning us, Maya reported, attempting system penetration, and failing. They've never encountered our shielding before. Take us in closer, Jack ordered. Lisa, target the lead vessel with the primary pulse generator. The Valiant surged forward, its ancient engines pushing it to speeds that defied its apparent technological level. The Harvester ships began evasive maneuvers, clearly confused by the approach of a vessel that hadn't succumbed to their disabling signal. In range, Lisa announced, firing main pulse. The Valiant shuddered as it discharged a massive electromagnetic pulse. The invisible wave struck the lead Harvester ship, causing its writhing exterior to seize and contract. The pulsating core flickered erratically. Direct hit, Lisa called. Their systems are disrupted, reading power fluctuations across their fleet. They're communicating with each other, trying to adapt. They won't have time, Jack said grimly. Fire all secondary pulses. The Valiant unleashed its arsenal, each pulse striking with devastating precision. The Harvester ships, designed to overwhelm digital defenses, had no protection against the Valiant's analog weapons. The smaller vessels are retreating, Maya reported. The larger ships are disabled but still intact. Jack turned to Vrzek. Admiral, your forces can approach now. The disabling signal has been neutralized. The Krikstar's expression showed something humans rarely saw: respect. I will coordinate the fleet, but how did you know this would work? We didn't, Jack admitted. The ship did. As the Alliance fleet moved in to engage the now vulnerable Harvesters, the Valiant's AI core fully activated. The main screen filled with information, revealing the ship's true history. It was a trap, Maya said in awe as she read the data. The Valiant wasn't abandoned. It was deliberately preserved and placed where the Harvesters would eventually find it. The humans who built it knew they would return. And they left us the weapon we would need, Lisa added, when everyone else had forgotten. The final Harvester vessel attempted to flee but was caught in a coordinated attack by the regrouped Alliance ships. As it exploded in a brilliant flash, Admiral Vrzek approached Jack. Commander Porter, he said formally, the Krikstar have much to learn from humans, it seems. There is wisdom in maintaining connections to one's past. Jack smiled slightly. The oldest technologies are sometimes the most valuable, Admiral. As the Alliance fleet secured the system, the Valiant maintained its position, engines humming with power that had waited centuries to be unleashed. The ship that had been mocked as obsolete now stood as humanity's greatest achievement, a bridge between past and future, preserving the knowledge needed when it mattered most. In the captain's chair, Jack placed his hand on the worn control panel. Beneath his fingers, he felt the subtle vibration of a ship that had roared back to life exactly when it was meant to.